It's about letting the industry recognize you for your hard work, for your determination and your efforts. That's something we've always said. We don't work for awards or anything like that. We work because we love what we do as a family, as a business, and supporting and servicing our community and industry peers and colleagues as well. That's what we believe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Logistics Leaders Podcast. I'm Kristy Guo, founder and CEO of Signature Global Network. Today, I'm genuinely excited about this conversation. Over the years, I've had the privilege of interviewing CEOs, founders, industry, veterans, and leaders, and a lot of amazing legends from around the world. Many have spent decades building incredible businesses and leaving remarkable legacies. But every great industry faces an important question: who is next? Who will carry the torch forward? Who will shape the future of logistics, customs, supply chains, and global trade over the next 10, 20, and 30 years? Today's guest is someone who represents exactly the future at an age when many young people are still trying to figure out what direction they want to take in life. He has already distinguished himself as a rising leader in our industry. He's the 2025 IFCBAA Young Professional of the Year, a founding member of the IFCBAA Young Professionals Representative Advisory Committee, holds a diploma of customs broker, and has already begun building a reputation as one of the most promising young professionals in Australian logistics. I'm so privileged and proud. What's even more fascinating is that before entering logistics, he spent years competing at an elite level in karate, representing Australia and achieving success at state, national, and international competitions. So today, we're going to explore something much deeper than logistics. We're going to talk about discipline, leadership, character, mentorship, the mindset of high performers, and what really takes for a young person to stand out in today's world. Because I believe this conversation isn't just for young professionals, it's for leaders, business owners, managers, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in understanding what the next generation of leadership looks like. Nicholas, welcome to the SGN Logistics Leaders podcast.
Thank you, Christy, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for the introduction. I think it's a little bit overwhelming, but thank you again.
Oh, Nicholas, thank you for coming. Before we jump into logistics, I have to say something. One of the reasons I wanted to invite you onto the show is because every now and then you meet someone whose age and maturity don't seem to match. You meet someone who has an unusual level of discipline, responsibility, and self awareness. And what impressed me wasn't simply your achievements, it was your attitude. Because awards are wonderful, titles are wonderful, but character is what sustains success over the long term. So I'm excited for our audience to get to know the person behind the achievements. Let's start at the beginning. Who was Nicholas before the awards, before logistics, before the recognition?
Who was I? A very good question. But before I was in the industry, even though I've pretty much grown up in the industry all my life, behind the the four walls of Gabos Freight Solutions under the tutelage of my father, I was long since a student. I was a karate athlete, as you touched on before, and I was very disciplined and committed to my hobbies, and most importantly to martial arts. So I started my adventure from as young as 4 years old under a good friend and mentor of mine who was the late Shihan Konkassis, who was a grandmaster in
Wow.
the style of Shitoryu. He was again a great family friend, a great mentor, and he started my journey in karate there in Airport West in the Cassis Karate Academy there with his wife, Sensei Rosanna Cassis as well. So for many years, I trained under them. They were like a second set of parents, especially on the tatami. They taught me a lot about respect, a lot about discipline. Again, embracing those community values and injecting it back into the community. So a lot of these peers of mine that I trained with over the years, they went on to become successful businessmen and women. community leaders, and a lot of them, again, are strong and passionate individuals who, again, grew from that success due to those values. And again, they lived up to the vision that Shihan Khan had foreseen for all of his pupils. So I was grateful to
Amazing.
start there.
Well, amazing. So, what age did you start that, Nicholas?
In terms of karate, I started at the dojo level from as young as I believe 4 or 5,
Oh,
or
wow.
in that mark. Yeah, just before I literally started primary school. So I was there from a very long time. Again, for many years I was under Shihan Khan, and I love him dearly because he is a great friend. And
Well,
as I transitioned to that competitive,
mm-hmm.
I'd say that transition into that competition sort of era there, I left Cassis Karate, and then I went to another dojo based in Brighton in Hyatt, well, not far from there actually, called Kimake Karate. And this was under my second mentor and good friend, Sensei Marco Mazzanti, who was again a successful athlete in his own right. He was a former Australian captain as well and Victorian captain. He won numerous national and state titles. He competed for Australia on the highest levels and stages. And as
Wow.
well, I think he's still currently the one of the senior coaches in the Victorian team and also the Australian team as well. So he's a highly successful and reputable coach.
Wow. Well, I have to say, Nico, you are very blessed. But also, not every student, if they're not ready, even you have masters, they can't be taught. I just want to ask one more question. What kind of a kid were you growing up?
What sort of child? I think I was. Look, being an only child, it's I'd say that definitely set me apart. So definitely less, I'd say, mingling with others. I was more to myself,
Mm.
more about honing my craft. If it wasn't in karate or school, reading books, always continuously studying, or perfecting my forms or kata or training by myself. So there was a lot of isolation, which I did enjoy, and it gave me a lot of opportunities to, I'd say, grow my character and somehow evolve
Personal
into what,
growth. Yeah.
yeah, and grow into what I am now exactly.
Mm.
But as well, over the years, I also learned how to get more confidence, and that was the thanks to martial arts that I'm forever grateful for, that allowed me to have such confidence and speak with such conviction and be comfortable around people all the time, no matter who they are or what roles they may have. It's about treating every conversation as friendly and as well, and just enjoying the experience as well. No different to now.
That's beautiful, Nicholas. You are probably one of the youngest guests we've ever had. As I said, you already
Wow.
become IFCBAA Young Professional of the Year. You've involved in logistics. You represented Australia in karate. Most people your age are still figuring things out. Do you want to share what happened? Like, there are
Yeah.
many people at your age. You're like, oh, why am I not there?
Yeah, definitely. What sort of happened there was, I believe, coming off year 12 in my studies in BCE, that sort of was the big part that made me want to think, well, what am I going to do with myself? So again, that last year I was getting heavily involved with the senior kumite team for the Australian national team. So I was traveling a lot and I missed a lot of school in terms of attendance. So VCAR wasn't too very pleased about that, and they did sort of penalize me on my ATAR. So I was very, and I can say it openly, I was very lucky to just scrape through because again, you passing year 12 means everything, but I wanted to do it on a higher note. But unfortunately, it just didn't pan out that way. So I was grateful to have Dad, Peter, our director, to sort of say, son, you've got a place here to build yourself up, and if you want to do something on your own, you're more than welcome to do that. But in the meantime, you got an opportunity to work here in an environment that you know well, and to just find your feet. And I think as I was sort of exploring my options, I sort of looked at everything and I just thought, well, I've been here for as long as I can remember. I love this place. I've always loved the industry from afar. And
Oh,
I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about my father and his achievements beyond the office, and I didn't really know what people, I'd say, how they valued him or how they thought of him. So when I was hearing from, people, oh, are you his son? Do you know he's done this or he's done that? And I'm just gone, you don't have to praise him just because he's my dad. Like you could just say he's like Peter.
Yeah.
But as I started reading it for myself, then I realized again what a customs broker can achieve and what the potential is. And that is the sky's the limit. So that definitely enticed me to come here and push myself to achieve the very best that I can possibly
Mm.
deliver. So that's exactly why I'm here.
Amazing. I can see at the back of you there are lots of values. I really love those things.
Yeah.
Boldness, excellence, leadership. These are amazing. I can tell how great the culture has been in your workplace. And I have to give credit to your dad, whoever created this company. And of course, you definitely carry some of his things with you. So I want to ask you, who influenced you most growing up?
Who influenced me most? Look, definitely my coaches. I won't lie there. Dad was a huge part. So was mum, because they were the two supportive figures that were constantly traveling with me, watching me fight, and being there for obviously all the training sessions and all the preps and being part of that rigorous journey. But my two coaches in particular, Shihan Khan and Sensei
Mm.
Marco, they were the two that I looked up most. They were the two that definitely I opened up to a lot, and they sort of allowed me to explore myself deeply and see what I'm really made out of. And that's the thing about martial arts. They bring you into the system, they crack you under pressure, and they remold you in what they want you to be. And,
Wow,
and exactly, it's bringing those values into the
it's
workplace now,
powerful. Mm.
into this industry that I think that's allowed me to set myself apart from others. But I definitely have to give as much credit as I possibly can to my two coaches.
Thank you so much. You know, Nicholas, that is very important because nowadays, if you can see, people will be shocked why you're such a young age. You look like 80 years old with your wisdom and everything, right? I'm not trying to make you old, but it's a
That's okay.
compliment because you are willing and you're open to have mentors in your life. So if you have mentors earlier, you don't have to go through another 50 years or 60 years to look for all these paths and ways and keep falling, experiencing yourself. I realized really later than you. Obviously, I'm much older than you. I wish someone told me I could have a coach when I was younger, like you do. So, whoever's listening, if you are the younger generations or whoever are parents, this episode you have to share with your kids because they have to understand how amazing and how significant that change or transformation can be when you're willing to be open to have coaches and mentors in your life. Thank you so much, Nico. That's definitely very, very good. What values did your parents teach you?
In terms of values, I think mostly similar to any European family that a lot of the old school values that started from our grandparents. So obviously that's, respect, being humble, being disciplined, dedicating yourself to some sort of study or craft as well, or a profession. So, as well, and it's all about having that cohesion as a family, staying together, being able to enjoy life, embrace life with one another, and most importantly, having fun. It's not always about being serious all the time.
Yeah.
I'm still young. I only just turned 21 very recently. So, as much as we can turn it on in the office, we also got to have that switch off button when you're at home. And
Yeah.
this is where a lot of family businesses like ourselves sort of can't distinguish that.
Mm.
So it's very important that you have that balance that once you leave the office, it stays at the office. You come home, have fun as a family, and just enjoy life, really, as much as you can. You just really don't know how long you're here for. So
Exactly.
that's why you just
Exactly.
got to take every day as it comes.
I love it. It's more about enjoying the process because life is a journey, not a destination. So, what
So,
did karate teach you that school never could?
a lot of things. A lot
I
of things.
know I'm gonna offend many school teachers here, but I knew it, so keep going.
Again, score academically, of course, you can't compare to anything else. But in terms of karate itself, and this is where the education system falls apart a little bit because it focuses so much on textbook knowledge and it doesn't really focus on your character or who you are as a person.
Yes.
and
Yes.
what is expected of you and what you should be. Because there are so many philosophies that are out there in the community. Everyone's willing to take their own path. But in karate, it's one philosophy or one style or one method. And how you choose to absorb that and make it into your own, that's up to you as a karateka or a student who practices martial arts or karate in particular, that actual phrase there. So again, it comes back to you, who you were trained by, what philosophy do you believe in, and how do you put that out into the community? How do you reflect that as a person? So this is where I think a lot of martial artists, in terms of those who actually leave the dojo and go into business become some of the most successful entrepreneurs and leaders because they have the ingredients to success already, plus that catalyst of being in a dojo environment, like you mentioned, being
Mm,
a high performance environment, and they've fast tracked and accelerated their progress and
yeah.
pretty, I won't say ready made, but they're not far off.
Yeah.
So it just takes that time being in that industry for a couple of years to master it, or being around for a little bit longer, depending on that person. Everyone's different.
Mm.
So again, the martial artists definitely have the biggest advantage.
Yeah, amazing. It's all about excellence. And, you know, what separates people from each other is the excellence that they're building up. And when you're doing karate, you have to make sure you do the best you can. If not, you're not going to get anything.
That's right.
I just have a concern here because after this episode, I'm sure Apple West or all those places is going to be flooded with clients after your promotion here because you had a really great story. I'm sure there's so many families that think, oh, where should I send my kids? I'm sure now they know where to go, especially who lives in Melbourne. Well, thank you for that, but they didn't pay you for ads. They should. Anyway, what was your toughest loss when you were younger? Like, is there any loss that you went through?
In terms of well, what sort of loss was it like in
Um,
terms of
Whether
competition?
it's someone or it's something that you felt really like it was the hardest time for you. Did you have that moment?
Yeah, look, I won't lie. I definitely had a few. Obviously, loss of relatives is obviously the biggest one when you're a European family.
Mm.
A lot of us can relate that when you're close to a lot of relatives like grandparents, always losing them is not always the easiest thing, especially watching your mum or dad going through that grief. That's obviously not the easiest thing to watch. Uh, in terms of myself personally, the biggest loss was probably my coach because again, I wasn't part of the club when that happened. I had just transitioned off and we sort of disconnected. But whenever we saw each other, we still had a perfect relationship and we embraced one another and we always used to remember the good times. But obviously to hear someone that you saw, just the other day tragically just gone like that is it does create a rift. And I
Mm.
think in my last year in competition, because that only happened the second last year, but the last year in particular, that made me feel very disconnected as well. And I think after that, I lost the passion,
Mm.
especially for the sport. I didn't feel like I was fully there. I wasn't fully committed, and especially on the mat when you're actively getting kicked and punched, literally
Yeah, yeah,
when you're not in the game and you're not focused,
yeah,
things are bound to go wrong. So
yeah.
for me, not being connected there, I just, yeah, it was a really tough year and it was very draining. So once sort of, hung up the gloves and left, that sort of felt like a relief or a refreshing moment. Just that to have that break, to have that breather. And then there was always a possibility that I may could have returned or, may not. But that was definitely one of the reasons why I hung it up in the end. And I said I don't want to wear a gi no more because
Mm.
that was the whole reason why I left as well. Because he
Mm.
wanted me to go to a high performance dojo to obviously go to the highest level as well. He was a big supporter of mine and he knew Sensei Marco was one of the ones that could get me there. And he did. Obviously, I wasn't there for as long as some of the peers that I trained with from young, but I definitely sped up and tried my best to keep up with them, and they gave me a real challenge. So
Well,
after we lost Shihan, he was a big loss for the community in
mm,
particular.
Understand. Well, once again, I want to shout out to you. That is biggest strength that you're willing to share this vulnerable story because most kids or younger generation, they think when you are sharing things like that, you're actually being weak. But it's actually the opposite. You've been strong, be willing to share what your obstacles are and setbacks because it happens to everyone. If you say you're completely smooth, you're just lying. No one has the smooth things like a flat because that means dying, right? Heartbeat is up and down. That's how life is. You did mention that was hardest time. How did you recover? Do you want to share a little bit about your journey so that it helps people whoever are suffering something similar to what you went through? Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of recovery, look, I definitely it wasn't, how do you say, like a big rift in the sense of that it was a big depression. It was a heavy loss. I think the biggest problem was obviously leaving the sport behind and everything that you grew up to build that reputation. I think that became a big identity crisis after that,
Mm,
which
mm,
a lot of athletes, when they do stop and they do exit that arena, they do have this problem where I think mentally, and I've spoken to a lot of sports psychologists, and they say they lose all their self-worth, they lose their confidence, they don't believe in who they are anymore, and they just lose everything that they were, and they think they're nothing, or in the sense of they were a shell of
mm,
what they once were. So I think that after leaving, that was the biggest, let's say, problem that I had because I had to find out who I really was and what I wanted to do. And it wasn't always just about being, Nick the competitor or Nick the karate athlete. I definitely could do so much more than that. And I think today I've proven that just well. So I definitely have to thank my father, Peter, my mum, Melinda, for being the two biggest supporters. And obviously our general manager, Ryan, as well, who's been like an uncle figure to me for many, many years, for most of my life. So he was the one that stuck by me and obviously lifted me up when I was at my lowest and just said, look, come here. I'll show you how it's done. We're going to have
mm,
fun. This is what we're going to do. And this
mm.
is what you can be if you follow the yellow brick road. So that's why
Wow.
I have to thank our team a lot for making me what I am.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, just to conclude what you said, and it's very much aligned to my recent talk on TEDx, it's about interdependence. When we have connections, when we have people who care about us and they're around, we recover much faster. If you stay there alone, feeling sorry for yourself, you don't really know because your brain's gonna tell you the lies that you believe. That's why you're suffering the Christ. And if someone who loved you are around, that makes a huge difference. So for those who are suffering those things, remember, don't get disconnected. Stay connected with those who love you or you love, just to be around it, because time will heal, time will help. So thank you, Nico. That was really good. So I want
Thank you.
to ask you another question. What does a black belt really mean?
A black belt, well, I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions when it comes to a black belt, but a black belt should be the true definition of what a black belt is once you receive that black belt, that's really the beginning of your martial arts journey. A lot of people see it as the end. It's really not. Again, I've been, privileged to actually earn two black belts. I earned one under my first mentor, Shihan Konkassis, and my second under Sensei Marco Mazzanti in the Shukokai style. So two very similar but different styles, but two different processes. Again, I'd say the first grading that I did with Shihan Kon, that was definitely easier. It was more technical, and obviously, knowing our history, understanding the lineage of the styles from Okinawa and all the traditional masters that came before us, and the mentors and so on and so forth. But with Sensei Marco, yeah, that was definitely one of the most grueling gradings I've ever been part of. That was over 2 days, and it was, I'd say, both days were over, I think, 8 or 9 hours. That they were quite lengthy, if I can remember. And they were both in the summer too. How can I ever forget it? It was in Chelsea Heights. It was in a again, it was a great dojo, great facility, but tin roof warehouse. I think 35 degree or 40, nearly 40 degrees. So we
That's
were
crazy.
absolutely, yeah, we we're absolutely melting in our gis. And again, I was lucky to have the competition ones that were very thin, but some of the guys had the really thick geese, so they were literally drenched underneath. But it was a great experience. That grading in particular, that taught me a lot about myself because once I got to the finish line, that grading wasn't about how good you were. It was about
Mm,
never giving up because
cool.
essentially you're not supposed to drop through it. So it doesn't matter how well, it does matter in the sense of how well, how not so well you can do something. It's more so having the resilience to say, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to grind through it and I'm going to go to the very end. That is the key aspect of what makes a black belt a black belt.
Mm,
So it's having that resilience, having that ability to bounce back, and most importantly, I think having that strength and that character to push, to grind, the grit, to overcome any obstacle, no matter how easy or how difficult, how short or how long the process may be. It's just getting it done in the end. So that's why, again, martial artists have the greatest advantage.
amazing. Well, Nicholas, I want to say to you, I can see yourself from not even 10 years, maybe 5 years from now. You're going to be, I know right now you're already successful as your age, but I'm saying you're going to be super, super successful. And you just are unbelievable. The wisdom, the way how you say things, and the understanding, the discipline. These are the things that are really missing in most of the especially younger generations' lives. I'm not here to judge anyone because we all have different lives and different environments. And like you said, you're blessed having your parents who are around and you met amazing mentors along the way. But yes, I'm just very empowered when I'm hearing everything you're sharing. So the next question will be related to young professional success. Most
Yes.
people your age are worried about Friday night. You seem focused on building a future. What does that mindset come from?
So it's grabbing everything that I've essentially learned over my years and putting it back into the craft. And that comes to, again, learning, hitting the books, mastering every chapter, learning everything that I can, absorbing it as well as I can, and asking the questions. I think the problem is with a lot of peers my age and a lot of my friends, some of them in university, some are still not. And that's okay because like you said before, everyone starts at different times and different periods. So you're sort of like, how do you say, you're still finding yourself, and that's okay. I think with me, especially coming from that background, that allowed me to cut through the fluff and the no nonsense, and that allowed me to get straight to the point to say, well, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be by X amount of time, and this is the work that I'm going to put in. And if I put in all this input, then my output's going to be so great. But I think a lot of young professionals will walk in and they'll say, well, I don't really want to do this, but I like this and I don't like that and I don't like this. It doesn't really pay to be that way because if you sort of limit that input, you're not going to get that output that you will respect.
Mm,
So it's about throwing yourself into scenarios where people don't want to be in. And that's exactly what I love to do, learning as much as I can and coming out a better person. Because again, there's obviously things that I don't know that someone will know, but I would love to know and learn. So again, this is where the industry is at its most beautiful period because there's so many licensed brokers in particular that you can learn from that specialize in one aspect or one commodity of some sort. That obviously that you can lean back on them for guidance and advice. So almost like a broker's broker, if I can say that
yeah. Yeah.
in a more
Yeah.
understanding way. So there's many of them out there, and I can only hope I can become one later on in life. That
Wow, that
someone can shoulder on me and say, Nick, what do you think?
so good. Well, I while you're sharing, I just have that image. I'm thinking all the schools should invite you to speak to those younger kids because you're saying something that's really right. And it's not about you feel like doing something, which is why you say you learn from martial arts because you don't really, they don't care about how you feel. You just get it done.
That's it.
And then that's good because pressure can be the best weapon, best tool for you. And it's like you go to gym, you're not looking for comfortable, like being comfortable. You're not looking for, hey, I don't feel like doing. If you don't feel like it, no one's gonna feel like doing it. But it's
That's
about
right.
you have to do it, and then you build the muscle. That's how rewarding after you sacrifice things. And that's why the next question I have for you is, what sacrifice have you made?
Time, lots of time. So obviously, for someone my age who just turned 21, I'm not living the life like a normal 21-year-old would, in the sense of going out, having fun, going to bars, going to the city, going night clubbing. I think for me, it's more so dedicating my time to my studies. Like you mentioned before, I completed my diploma in customs broking last year in December. So that's one part or essentially one step of becoming a licensed customs broker. But there's so many things that I can do in my personal time, such as research, mastering the tariff, understanding all the schedules and all the acts, reading all the grey points that we probably didn't touch in the actual diploma itself. So there's going to come a question that someone's going to put you on the spot. Yeah, and you're expected to know that answer. And that is the job of a licensed customs broker. That again, they are professionals that again a lot of people look to when they don't know the answer and they'll say, well, you're the broker, figure it out. And again, sometimes it's not nice how they do it. It does put a lot of pressure, but we love it. That's what we live for. We live for that rush. We live for that adrenaline.
Exactly.
And again, that sets us apart. And that's why we love to do the things we do and assist importers and freight forwarders and again act as an extension for the regulators like NACA or the Australian Border Force or DAF. That's part of our job. It's about keeping the standard high and not dropping it, which is I'm afraid that may happen with the younger generation that they expect one thing and they're not going to get it because the expectations are too low when they should be aiming higher and achieving higher.
Mm.
So this is where we need to cut it from the stem now and allow them to wake up and achieve the best results that they can and push them to the limit.
Yeah, I'm sure you can be a great trainer there and coach for all the younger, like, for this industry. But I want to share a little bit about my story quickly because when you're
Yeah.
sharing that 21 years old, you didn't go through the bar. I didn't either. I was pretty much like you. I spent a lot of time by myself and I was learning. I love drawing. I love reading. I love writing, all those things. And that honestly, when I went to the bar really once was because of the work trip that the boss said, "Oh, we're going to the bar." What is a bar? I have no idea what bar was. I went there. People were crazy in there. I was like, I don't like it. I don't need this. So that's why I don't really drink alcohol, even though I'm in networking environments. I'm always the very good connector, but I don't have to drink because no one can force me to. And I'm just sharing that because I wanted to tell you, Nicholas, you didn't really lose anything. You actually gain way more than lose anything
That's
because the
right.
mountaintop is never crowded and it's always easier to have fun. But do you want to have fun in the long term or you want to have a short term fun? And that's
That's
the
right.
question. Yeah. So well done. That's what I want to share. All right. So what do people misunderstand about ambitious young people?
Uh, Look, I could probably talk about myself in this aspect. I can't really comment about others,
Yes.
but I think in terms of ambition, when you see it in a young professional, I think a lot of veterans will probably mistake it for arrogance or cockiness because they'll see someone, walk in with a bit of confidence and a bit of conviction. They'll say, well, he hasn't sat around here for a while and he needs to earn his stripes. And by all means, that's definitely correct. You need to be around to obviously understand how things work. But again, stemming back from that martial arts background, the way how we were taught was it was more so about competence than obviously being around the longest. So obviously understanding your form and understanding the style better than anyone else. It didn't matter really what rank you were because
Mm,
even a black belt can learn from a white belt. So it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really matter where you line up or how you train that was the environment that we came from and that's what our coaches believed in
mm,
and that's why as clubs part of two clubs that I was that they were highly successful clubs because a lot of them had that cohesion. They had that love and respect for one another and everyone wore the same uniform. So in the industry sense, like we all don't wear geese and belt, but we all come under that same umbrella, under the same profession, under that same sector of logistics. And I can't see why we all can't work together and coexist as one another and allow people to obviously, address issues and show off what they can do and give hope to the next up and coming generation as well to showcase their potential.
yeah, you're right. And I have seen many things happen in this society that people, especially, I'm not here to judge anyone, but there are many old generations when they look at the young generation, they're confident, like, what are you doing? You haven't done anything. Like they start to use their years of experience to judge. But what I believe is really the very successful people in my world, because even though I'm much older than you, but I'm coaching people who are 20, 30 years older than me. and they're still listening to me, not because I'm
Yes,
older than them, just because on some expert and also the expertise in areas that I actually know more than they do. So it doesn't matter, like you said, the black belt or white belt. And that kind of teaching was amazing. If everybody understands about that, this world will be so much better because we are meant for each other. And
yes,
honestly, we still can learn a lot from the old generations because they
that's
experience
right.
real stuff. But I always learn from my daughter. She's only 12. She teaches me a lot of things, which I said, I'm not good at it. You tell me what to do. And which is beautiful because that builds a lot of bonding, connections, and
Yes.
that's what's meant to be because you want each other to be better rather than competing with each other. Yeah,
That's right. And like you said, again, just to sum it up, knowledge doesn't really have an age when you think about it, because knowledge is really older than all of us, because it's passed down from generation to generation to generation, and the cycle is unending. So everything that, some of my predecessors would have learned, then that's exactly what I will learn later on. But review and filter out what didn't work and what worked, and make it into something more better, more successful,
exactly.
especially as the industry is adapting as well. So
Yeah.
that's just a part of evolution and part of life.
Yeah, it's also about understandings, mutual understandings, because you guys are in a different age. When I say age, is a modern time, and it's actually harder than before. Even though my parents that time they were struggling about world peace, obviously, with wars and everything. But now you don't just get wars, you get spiritual wars, I mean AI wars, all these wars. There's a lot of challenges, and
Yeah,
even COVID happened during those times, and mental health problems, and so many things. You can't measure, you can't compare with apple with pear or use different things to measure. It's all about showing the compassion and understandings that will create a very loving, respectful environment for different generations. That's why I love learning the new generation's languages. Also, "Oh, what is that?" They tell me all this, diva. What is diva? I don't know. There's many words I've learned from the younger generations. Yeah. All right. So have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome?
imposter syndrome, as in coming across people who suffer from that, or
Yeah, have you ever faced that? For example, you achieve things, but you feel like you don't really achieve anything.
in terms of myself,
Yeah.
look, for me, I wouldn't say it's about being an imposter or things like that. I think the results are a reflection of the hard work that's put in. I'm more about going back to the drawing board always and seeing what worked and what didn't work. So I'm probably sounding like more like my coaches more than anything now. And it's again studying what you did that was great, that worked, and obviously things that you can improve or things that didn't really work well, and see how can you adapt it, how can you change it. And that work ethic, that repertoire is direct reflection into what you achieve.
Mm,
So having an industry award, a national award that's, at 19 when I first won that award, and again, being a former national and state athlete, all these things that go around it, plus the diploma, is a reflection of that hard work. So work is something that you can't fake. That's something you have to endure and experience.
mm,
So that really discredits anything from being an imposter of the sort. And that should be an inspiration for more young professionals to throw themselves into more difficult challenges and take on everything as it comes, really. Because the more you do, the more you will achieve. It just comes naturally. You don't throw yourself into the spotlight willingly saying, look at me, pick me, I'm here. It's about letting the industry recognize you for your hard work, for your determination and your efforts. That's something we've always said. We don't work for awards or anything like that. We work because we love what we do as a family, as a business, and supporting and servicing our community and industry peers and colleagues as well. That's what we
mm.
believe in.
I love that. I just realized we're still midway of my questions, but we're almost 45 minutes here.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed it, Nico. It was so fantastic. So, because listen to you, it becomes clear that many of the qualities that helped you succeed in karate are exactly the same qualities that help people succeed in business and leadership. Discipline, consistency, resilience, learning from setbacks. Now let's talk about another arena where you've been building your reputation. the logistics industry. And I have to admit, logistics isn't usually the first industry people imagine a 20-year-old becoming passionate about. So I'm curious, how did logistics find Nicholas? I mean, I know a little bit about your story, but for the sake of the audience, can you
Yes.
share a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Look, I was, like I said, I was always hidden in the four walls of the firm. I think a lot of people didn't even know that my father had a son, because again, someone like my father, he's always been reserved into himself, like many in this industry are, because they're just there to do their work. Like you know who they are, but in saying that, like he's always respected. Obviously, everyone's privacy. He stayed away from a lot of things, and rightfully so, because we're there to socialize, but we're also there to work, to learn, and obviously better ourselves as well. So I don't think I was ever a talking point or of discussion. So I think once people started learning, who I was really, and I was Peter's son, that sort of came about later in life as I graduated high school and started working, where I started in an operations point of view, organizing local cartage, becoming a freight forwarder, organizing pickups overseas, and arranging all the freight forwarding to and from Australia, vice versa. So imports and exports. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, how are you related to Peter? Are you like his brother or like, cousin?" And I'm just
Cousin?
like,
They
and
didn't
I'm like,
even know you existed.
yeah, and I'm just like, "Oh no, I'm just Nick. I'm just a relative. Don't worry about it." But then when they
Relative.
talk to him and they're like, "Oh, have you spoken to my son?" And they're just like, "Darn it, I knew it," and he wouldn't tell me. So look, it's something that I've never, puffed my chest out on. Being the son of a founder of a business, it's always been about being me, being Nick. Gavos is just a name. It's a name on the wall, and it's really about your independence, being who you are. Because this was something that I actually mentioned in the conference. My teachers can't fight for my license, and nor can my father. That's something I have to do when I go before NACA Black by myself.
Mm.
So only Nick can achieve to be a licensed customs broker, and only he can have the qualities and the values to push through that interview
Mm.
to be one of the best.
Mm.
So that's something that's not freely given. That's something that's rewarded for hard work and again determination and grit. So again, I'm thankful for again a lot of people coming up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know all this," and I've just gone, "Yeah, but that's not what I'm here
There's
for."
no difference. I'm still Nick.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think in my position, being a son of a founder, it's one of the difficult things because once
Yes.
you get pushed out there, you've got a legacy that weighs you down and a
Mm.
lot of people will expect from you. So this
Yeah.
is the difference of where I think between someone that isn't a second generation versus myself and some others as well, because depending on how good your parent is, mother or father who is a broker, they're going to look at you and expect that as a standard. And in the case of my father, that standard's very high. So again, I'm forced to fill those shoes and be better and step out of that shadow to be myself. So I think I'm on the track of doing that, but I'm not there just yet where I want to be. So there's definitely a lot more hard work and time that I can put into that to be the best person that I can be. So definitely.
Yeah. That's a very beautiful story and it's funny. Well, I understand that. I'm sure there are many next generations from logistics point of view. We have seen more and more next generations are coming on board, which is beautiful that you didn't need that name and you just need to do to prove yourself. Not really prove to anyone because you know exactly what you need to improve and to be the best version of yourself. So, what excites you about logistics?
Everything. Everything. I think that the best part about logistics coming in every morning, apart from having your coffee and, embracing bracing for the impact of the emails that come in first thing before you even flick the switch of the computer, it's possible challenges, I believe, that sort of make it fun for everyone because the good thing about this field is it's not always repetitive. You're always going to get something new.
Everything's new every day.
Yeah, and something's going to test you, and there's going to be things that
Yes.
you don't know, but you're going to have to problem solve it through
Yes.
to get that
Yes.
resolution. So this is where martial arts, and again, I know I keep making this reference back, but you have this starting point, this beginning point, the process. You work your way through it, and then you have a finishing point. You have an end process. So if you can take the two and you can create a formula to solve any problem, then you can definitely be one of the best in what you do, no matter how much you know. But it's about the structure,
Mm.
you see. So
Yes.
this is the fun part of logistics where I think a lot of people come across,
Yeah.
different scenarios and different problems, but have the ability to get through it because they have that start process and finishing process as well.
Mm. Thank you, Nick. You remind me about my youth. Okay, I'm old. But the key is I was shaped by the industry. I understand exactly what you're saying. And every day I had a chance to make a decision to solve problems. And every time after solving some problems, I was fulfilled with achievement and fulfillment, which was really amazing. It was hard, but just like you go to gym, once you finish the hard things, you build muscles and you feel like, oh, I look quite nice, quite fit. I'm feeling great. The same thing. Yeah. So what opportunities are older generations missing from your point of view in logistics?
Uh, in what sense of opportunities, is in like,
It's like, for example, because you are representing the younger generations,
yeah.
we all can learn from younger generations as older generations. From your perspective, since, even though you're not here for ages, from those years, what have you seen? Like, is there anything that you can share with the older generations that you found it's missing that they can consider that will make their life better, make the environment better?
I think, look, in that sense, if we're going to talk like that, which that's a fantastic point, I think we can sort of find the middle ground there because it's also what can the younger generation learn from the older generation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak right in the fence, and I think it's having a perfect blend. As you would imagine, that the industry is obviously adapted. There's things like technology, AI, things that have come along.
Mm.
So the industry is definitely sped up in that sense that everyone can see what you're doing in terms of live tracking.
Yeah.
30 years ago or 20 years ago, there was no such thing that you could track
Mm.
cargo. And I
Mm.
think everyone could delay clearances and imports and things like that. But it's become so fast paced that I think we're even chasing our own tail. So
Mm.
it's having that right balance. I think with the older generation, they've got the perfect balance because they've learned the old way of in the sense of starting from the ground up, and they're forced to adapt to technology and obviously retain those skills and knowledge that they've learned over the years in terms of the craft, mastering the tariff, mastering classification, valuation, all these things that come the basics of being a licensed customs broker. But then there's also the younger generation where I think they can learn from the older generation in the sense of going back to hitting the books, learning how they did, but finding that right balance with the technology and not using it as a dependence. And that sort of creates miscomplacency after that. So we are licensed professionals. I'm not yet, but the way how I conduct myself, I try to as if I have that license because it does mean a lot to a lot of us that are going for it, upholding the integrity and the responsibility that a licensed broker should hold. So in that sense, the younger generation needs to learn from the older generation, learn from their mistakes, learn from their successes, and review and filter exactly as I said before. Take what worked, what didn't work, put it together, make your
Yeah.
own style, add
Yeah.
your own flair and personality to it. And that is the recipe to success. I can't be a carbon copy of my father or my general manager or anyone else in the industry as a matter of fact. I can only take what worked for them, add it to my style, and then be myself.
Mm.
So I think that's where the younger kids, in particular the ones my age, can definitely learn from and use those
Amazing.
recipes for success.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Um, if you were CEO of a logistics company tomorrow, what would you change in this industry? Like, what's the things that you would think as a CEO you will consider to make this industry better and make everyone's life better?
Uh, Very good question. That's put me on the spot. There's so many things that you can do to do that. What I would love to see more, if I was again to have a senior role as such, is to see more people get together more frequently, have that industry get more connected, as it was so many years ago before, everyone sort of disconnected a little bit.
Mm.
Yes, it was still competitive. I mean, everyone works for their own business. Some work for SMEs, some work for multinationals.
Mm.
But in saying that, we all come from the same system together. A
Mm.
lot of us were in the same classes. A lot of us grew up together. Some of us probably got the licenses together. So
Exactly.
you don't lose those relationships. And if anything, we should
Exactly.
keep building on that.
Yeah.
And again, not being afraid to pick up the phone and talk to someone. I'll just make up a name, Adam, let's say, and say, well, what do you think? I'm stuck on this. Have you ever come across this? What do you think? There's nothing wrong with that, and there's definitely no shame in it because, again, we're all here because we all have the same interests, we all have the same goals, and effectively we're all serving the greater good, and that is the border force as well, and upholding the integrity and the responsibility of what the license entails. So, as much as it's also about being an individual or representing the firm that you work for, it's also the industry and everything that it upholds.
I love that, Nick. That's very much aligned with my belief about interdependence. We all need each other. We're not meant to compete with each other. Sometimes good competitions are good,
It's
like,
healthy in that sense.
games.
Yeah.
It's fun. But when it goes over that, it's not fun. It's actually quite unhealthy. And you're right. I believe the whole reason why the society have more and more mental health issues is simply because of the disconnection. When you are connected with someone, remember you shared earlier about your story that you went through a hard time because of the connection, every problem is solved. And that's how simple it is. Um, I'm really excited. We should talk about that next time or about this topic.
Sure.
Because of time, I'm going to move fast for the next question. What can experienced leaders learn from Gen Z?
Well, there's a look again. It goes both ways. I think what experienced leaders can learn from Gen Z is obviously their creativity, their energy. Because again, the good thing about being youthful or having youth is coming up with these fresh ideas and again being so energetic. You inject life back
Yes, and
into
passion.
an
Yeah.
industry, that passion, and it sort of reignites that spark or that flame that
Yes.
you might still have, but as you get older, probably sometimes you're like, oh, I can't really be bothered with this anymore, but seeing that young kid come in and really give it a good crack, like you were mentioning about your daughter,
Yeah.
learning from her, that probably keeps you
Yeah.
burning
Younger.
and
Yeah.
firing every day. So having that gift of youth around you, and this is exactly what the industry is missing,
Mm.
I think would reignite the passion of a lot of the licensed brokers as well, and maybe even might convince them to take up a mentoring role, a teaching role as a
Yeah.
facilitator. So there's a lot of things that it can do. But I think it's just remembering where we all started and going back to our humble
Yes.
beginnings and remembering where our 2 feet once were before,
Honeymoon. Remember the
yeah,
honeymoon. After
pretty
getting
much.
married, don't go back to the being
Yeah,
argument. You get out the
that's
being
right.
or you get out the being. We're just
That's
still
right.
going honeymoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. So the next question is related now. So what can Gen Z learn from experienced leaders? Which I think you share a little bit. Do you want to add something more here?
Yeah, I think again, I won't take up too much of your time. I'll keep it short. But with the youth, I think what they can learn from the older generations is obviously studying how they walk, how they talk, how they conduct themselves. Obviously, learn what they know, but most importantly, try and mimic how a professional in our industry really does business, how they conduct themselves because that's something that you can take as a little antenna, as I say, and you're sort of recepting that signal and you're sponging it in really, right? So these are things that the more exposure that you have, that you're more in your office or more in terms of let's say interacting in the greater industry events such as the national conference, that it allows you to pick up on these things and become a better professional,
Mm,
become a better a leader, a better speaker
mm.
in that sense. So I think that the more you can be around older, more established professionals, the better it will be for your career.
Wow, I love that. I have five more questions. We're going to be faster.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I
The next
promise.
question, but it's important. You can't just be quick and skip it, okay? So, what advice would you give young professionals looking for mentors?
Again, with that sort of question, you got to start in a brokerage. Find somewhere where you can learn the craft. It doesn't matter where you are in my philosophy. Again, you can be in any firm, in any business. You need to find a mentor that is willing to teach. It's no different to you being in a public school or a private school. Wherever you send a child, they are going to learn.
Mm,
Some environments are obviously better than others. Let's not look at it from that aspect. But in the sense of if you have a foot in the industry and you're learning under a licensed broker, you're already step one in. And
mm,
that is under a licensed professional who has attained their license, has the acquired experience and knowledge to be a licensed broker, carries all the values,
mm.
knows the crafts very well, and you can learn from them as well. So that's obviously your foot in.
I think to conclude what you said is the quality. When I say quality, that the expertise, if that guy is actually good at that thing. And
Yes,
secondly is the progress. Don't be perfectionism. So you don't want to find some, oh, I want to find the best one in the world to teach me, but they don't have time to teach you. So you need to look at someone to start with, right? And then you also mentioned about the value. You need to have the same value because if the values are so different than what you believe, it will end up become a disaster. Just like any relationships, you
that's
need to
right.
make sure you have the common ground that okay, we actually believe in the same thing, so let's do it. And then I think you also mentioned one more thing is passion. Because if that person doesn't really have passion to teach you, you no matter how hungry you are, you're only gonna absorb part of it because it's oh no, I don't know. They will
That's
talk
right.
like that, right? So
Yeah.
very good. Next question. Why do some young people grow quickly while others stay stuck?
Good question. I think if I had to look at myself in that sense, I think it comes back down to your experiences and yourself as a character, the development that you've gone under the years that have gone by, and but what have you actually enjoyed over those experiences? Because those events shape you as a person. You see, no matter how difficult or complex they are, that those events are a part of a bigger story or a saga, as I say. They're all little milestones into that eventually lead to something much more greater in life, and that comes down the track. But the reason why probably some don't actualize at a younger age compared to others is probably because of their experiences, probably lack of exposure, maybe not being willing to throw themselves at a challenge, being more reserved and not so confident, maybe shy. Again, it comes back down to a lot of things, and maybe even upbringing too of mum and dad, because a
Mm.
lot of it before you look at the community starts at home, because everything starts somewhere, and that's our belief as a family as well. When you look at a child, it's a reflection of the parents. So that's where it all starts.
Yeah, in saying that, Nick, I want to quickly jump in there because I have seen a lot of stories. I've been talking to very successful entrepreneurs as well. And there is a story, just quickly. There's a guy who was really sad and blamed about his parents because he wasn't born in a very good environment and everything. And then he was there for like whole year. And then this guy who loves this guy, well, my friend, and he said, enough. It's time for you to get up and do something. You cannot keep blaming your mom and dad and everyone around you. You should take ownership and responsibility. The reason why I'm
Mhm.
sharing that story is, and actually the guy really thanked him because he met someone, mentorship is about not about being nice to you or just trying to make you feel good. It's really to tell you off. It's time to wake you up. And I think
Yes.
that's why, Nick, even though not everyone has the chance to have the best childhood or beautiful family, actually, most of them don't. We all had some past trauma or
Yes.
childhood shadows, all those things, weight us down. But the only thing that you need is really even one person or anyone appear in your life that you are willing, when the students are ready, the master will appear, you're willing to learn, your life is going to be completely different. And that
Yes.
happens to you, that happens to every single successful person on this planet. That's what I've seen as well. It happens to me, not because I'm better than anyone, just because I'm a sponge. I love absorbing great things and learn from people who are great, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what my reflection is. Um, More questions. What impact do you want to have on the logistics industry for the coming maybe 9, 10 years?
Very good question. I think now because I'm still technically in the young professional bracket, I really haven't thought so much about later. I'm still obviously, working on my individual goals of becoming a licensed customs broker, but the end game in terms of the impact in that bracket of being a young professional is I want to break the mold of what a young professional can or can't achieve. And I think I've already started doing that just now in terms of my own age and experiences. But
Yes.
I definitely want to inspire people to come into the industry, give it a red hot crack, follow the yellow brick road, don't deviate, follow the process, trust the process, and you'll see that the hard work that you put in will reward you in the end.
Mm.
Because it's no different to a kid up the road who comes in, starts exactly as I did, and can probably be better than me because, again, there's always someone better than all of us out there, including
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
So I've never claimed to be the best, but I want to make it a blueprint for all young professionals that
Mm.
can look up to me and say, well, if this guy did it, I want to do it and I want to do it
Yes.
better.
Yes.
And if that again happens, if someone does do better than what I did, that means I've done my job right. So that
Yeah.
means that again, what I've done, that hard work, that the time, the hours and the days that I've put in, that means it's been done for the greater good and it hasn't gone to waste. So if someone can do better than me, then by all means, that they'll make me the happiest person alive.
You you have so much common things with me. Everything you said, I completely feel the same. And that's how I felt even 10, 20 years ago. I'm that old, by the way. So, yeah, but it was really good. And it's about leaving a legacy. It's never about ourselves when you reach to a certain level that the thing that's pushing you forward is really people around you. You want to leave a footprint. If someone can't do it, at least I can do it to show them they can do it, so that they will feel injected and empowered, inspired. They can do it, and that kind of seeds you plant on this planet, it's already a huge legacy that you can leave behind. And that's why I'm saying you already understand the meaning of life. The purpose of life is never about ourselves. The purpose of life is because we are meant for each other. We are here because of others, not because of myself, but because of others, which is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna finish with the last question. What does success mean to Nicholas, to you now?
What does success mean to me? Again, success for me means legacy, and that's taking what my father did over the years, what he's achieved, and growing upon that as a family, and obviously the legacy that obviously was created from my family, and stemming it into something greater. So if that means that I go on to become a successful licensed customs broker at a very young age and stay in the industry for a very, very long time and become an old timer myself, which I'd absolutely love to. Again, if that means I take what he's done and make it better, then again, he's done his job as a mentor, and that means that the succession continues. And that means that I can build upon that and allow opportunity for someone else to take what I've done and build on that as well. So it's almost being a stepping stone in the story. And like you said, the true meaning of life is about helping other people. This is what karate made me realize from a very young age. And I think a lot of older people still haven't figured it out yet. Because it's a story of generations that,
Yes.
you take that knowledge, and then once the next generation comes, you give it to them and say, this is what I know and what I've learned. But these are the tools that you have that I didn't have. You can make it better now because you've got the capabilities. So sprint. I say my father's mentors learned how to crawl, so people like my father learned how to walk, so to speak. And then my industry, or my generation can come into the industry and learn how to sprint with that technology and the experience that we have now. That we should be pushing the bar even higher
Hmm.
as well.
How
So
to
as
run.
compliance gets harder
Run.
every year, it's about pushing it up as well and
Yes.
getting better.
I love that. I love that. Well, the end of this is because we know this interview, this video is going to be here forever. And at 10, 20 years later of you, so you turn 40. By the way, I'm turning 40 this year.
Oh no.
No way, I know, but I am. Asian genes, don't be fooled by the face. So, what do you hope? Let's say, Nick, imagine you're sitting across from your future self at age 40. What do you hope he thanks you for doing right now at age of 20, 21?
I think he would, if I had to speak to myself as a 40-year-old Nick, speaking to a 21-year-old Nick, I'd definitely be saying thank you for pushing yourself and putting yourself in a position where most will be very uncomfortable to be in, and for being brave, because I don't think a lot of young professionals are prepared to throw themselves and be trialed by fire, to either be made or broken in a high pressure environment such as logistics. So it can be rewarding, but it can also be how do you say, discouraging. So it's about having that resilience to keep bouncing back. So if I had to speak to myself, I'd say thank you for doing what you did, putting yourself out there where others wouldn't possibly want to go, especially as a first option, and just thank you for being yourself. I think because a lot of this success that will come later on, and even now, so to speak, is because I've just been purely me, and that's Nick, not son of Peter or Gavos. It's just me being Nick, and me being me, so to speak.
Amazing. Nick, thank you for joining us today. As we've been talking, I've been reflecting on something. People often say that young people are the future. But after this conversation, I don't think that's quite accurate. Young leaders like yourself aren't simply the future. You're already helping shape the present. What stands out to me is that while many people focus on talent, your journey reminds us that talent is never enough. It's discipline, it's humanity, it's being willing to learn, it's having mentors, it's staying curious, and it's continually to show up every day, even when nobody's watching. I believe our industry needs more young professionals like you, but equally important, our industry needs experienced leaders who are willing to invest in, mentor, and develop the next generation. Because great industries are built when wisdom and young work together, not independently, interdependently. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation. Nick, congratulations on everything you've achieved so far.
Thank
More
you.
importantly, congratulations on the person you're becoming. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to watching your journey unfold over the years ahead.
Thank you, Kristy, and I really appreciate you having me here. And it was a pleasure again, once again, to meet you in Hobart. And again, this is such an amazing and very overwhelming opportunity. So hopefully, this does reach out to the younger generation, and it does inspire them to look deeper and find something in themselves.
Thank you so much. Before you go, I still have one more thing. You only have one sentence to answer,
Yes, yes,
one
yes, yes.
message. Nick, imagine somebody watches this interview 10 years from now. Maybe they're 16 years old. Maybe they're 20 years old and feeling lost. Maybe they're wondering whether they have what it takes. What's one message you'd like to leave them with?
Give it your best shot and give it a go, and never say never.
Woohoo! I love that so much. There's a round of applause around. I'm just imagining right now. It's so good. Short and sweet. Thank you so much, Nick. I wish we can have you again in the future to inspire more generations. And really, I just love this. This is probably the longest podcast we've ever had, but it's
Oh,
worth
wow.
it.
I'm
It's
so
worth
sorry.
it. It's worth it. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you, Christy. I really appreciate it again. It was lovely to be here and to speak with you again.